The memory is seared into my soul, that devastating day when Adam casually announced he wanted a divorce because he'd created a whole new family behind our backs. There was Olivia, standing next to him with a self-satisfied nod, and in that heart-shattering moment, I realized what 30 years of marriage had meant to them: absolutely nothing. Their baby slept peacefully in the stroller, innocent and unaware that its very existence had just torn my world apart, while my hands trembled with a mix of rage and despair I'd never felt before. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. Adam had checked out long ago, barely lifting a finger since Samantha was born, though somehow I'd managed to squirrel away enough for her college fund despite his reckless spending. There he stood, this stranger wearing my husband's face, a man who'd not only abandoned his role as a father but seemed proud of it, consumed by his shiny new life while letting our decades together crumble to dust. I wondered if he had ever thought, even for a moment, about how this betrayal would affect Samantha and me. The family so easily cast aside, and my heart ached. As these thoughts were pulling me down into the depths of silence, my beloved Samantha's voice cut through the tension from in front of the TV. "Daddy, aren't you watching?" The sound that came from Adam wasn't just a shout, it was the death knell of our family. I'm Allison, and at 50-something, I never imagined I'd be starting over, my identity as wife and homemaker shattered like a mirror dropped on concrete. My story with Adam began at my first corporate job after college, back when I still believed in fairy tales and happily ever afters. He noticed my new employee jitters and reached out with what I thought was kindness, telling me not to hesitate to ask questions, though he wasn't even my assigned mentor. Someone else had that official role, but Adam. Oh, Adam made me feel like I mattered. Fresh out of college, I was drowning in the corporate world, every interaction feeling like a test I wasn't prepared for. But Adam became my lifeline, patiently teaching me, and with each question I asked, I felt myself falling deeper into what I thought was love. Our relationship blossomed, and each flower of time we spent together opened its petals toward the sun. When he finally confessed that he was captivated by my dedication to work and asked me to date him, it was like being the protagonist in a romance novel. Despite the little voice in my head warning me about office romances, the same voice I now wish I'd listened to, I said yes, my heart already too entangled to resist. Marriage followed like the next chapter in a story I thought would be my forever, and then came Samantha, our precious miracle who made everything seem perfect. But life isn't a Hallmark movie, I know that now more than ever. There were days when with every breath, the grip tightened and it was filled with deep pain. The deepest cut was his infidelity during my pregnancy with Samantha, a betrayal so cruel it made me question every smile, every touch, every moment we'd ever shared. The irony still burns. This man who had once held me close, crying genuine tears of joy at news of the pregnancy, had already begun weaving his web of lies. My body was battling severe morning sickness, every smell of food violently shook my stomach, and nausea overwhelmed me. After our wedding, Adam pressured me to end my career, his timing perfectly aligned with his upcoming promotion, and like so many women of my generation, I surrendered to the pressure of being the perfect wife, letting go of the job I'd worked so hard to build. All the household chores weighed heavily on my shoulders. I told myself it was my duty since I was at home, but cooking while suppressing my nausea felt like medieval torture. One evening, gathering every ounce of courage I had, I approached Adam as he lounged in his favorite recliner. "I'm sorry, but could we maybe do takeout or prepared meals for a little while?" My voice quivered with the request. He furrowed his brow and spoke in a cold, sharp tone. "You're a housewife, right? Since you're not working, at least do the housework properly. Otherwise, you're just a burden." I understood intellectually that it was my duty to do the housework since we were living off his income. But this wasn't negligence, my body refused to cooperate, and the morning sickness relentlessly tormented me. Desperately, I tried to make him understand. "The morning sickness is unbearable. Just the smell of food makes my stomach rebel. Honestly, with my growing belly, even the other housework is becoming harder each day. Shut up, his words rang out coldly. That's just an excuse. You're a housewife, so do the housework properly. What if I get harmed by these sloppy meals? It's your job to welcome your husband with a lovingly prepared, nutritious meal. His words felt like being pushed into a frozen lake in December. Shocking, painful, and breathtaking. I'd hoped that maybe, just maybe, on his days off he might lift himself from that living room sofa and help with some chores, but it was like talking to a concrete wall. My pleas fell on deaf ears, bouncing off his indifference like rain off a window. So I endured, forcing myself through the nausea and the weight of my growing belly, doing whatever housework I could manage. Those days were my personal hell, but when Samantha was finally born, I thought the worst was behind me. When I saw my child in the delivery room, I was moved to tears, but Adam didn't show up because he was busy with work. The nurses exchanged awkward glances, but the moment I held Samantha, all my worries vanished in the overwhelming joy. In that instant, I made an unshakable vow. I would protect this child with everything I had, ensuring she would always have the comfortable life she deserved. Just as I'd expected, Adam showed zero interest in childcare. To save money for Samantha's needs, I started working from home. Of course, I tried discussing this with Adam, but he dismissed my plans entirely, insisting I shouldn't work. He seemed to think there was no time for work between childcare and housework. However, I believed that my income could provide Samantha with everything she needed. Finding time to work while managing the household and raising a child was like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. But thinking of Samantha gave me the strength to push through the exhaustion. My efforts paid off, and my work-from-home venture started flourishing. Adam, meanwhile, continued his pattern of avoiding housework and childcare, spending his after-work hours planted in front of the TV. He mocked my efforts, saying someone of my limited abilities working from home was just playing at having a job, that I'd barely earn anything but could do as I pleased. He never even asked what kind of work I was doing. His dismissal stung, but I channeled that hurt into determination. Sometimes Samantha would approach him while he lounged in the living room on weekends, asking to play. Where I would have jumped at the chance with a smile, Adam always refused with irritation. He'd snap that he was too busy for games and that she should play with mommy instead, then hurriedly change clothes and leave. Looking back now, his outings had become more frequent, not just weekends, but weeknights too. I knew his work schedule well enough to know there were no overtime hours planned. And I knew his company well enough to know they didn't force overtime on their employees. The moment suspicions of an affair crossed my mind, I hired a private investigator, my hands trembling as I made the call. Sure enough, my husband was having an affair with another woman, and the proof was shocking. Furious, I confronted Adam with divorce papers, telling him it was unforgivable to do this to a family with a child. But he pleaded desperately, asking what would happen to Samantha if her father disappeared while she was so young. Truth be told, that worried me too. Raising Samantha as a single parent wasn't just about the practical challenges. Even if it didn't affect her personality, she might face bullying at school, something no mother wants for her child. But even these concerns weren't enough to contain my anger. I was determined to divorce him eventually. What made me reconsider was Samantha's dream. In her deep sleep, she whispered about wanting to play with her daddy. The house had been shrouded in a heavy atmosphere since Adam's affair came to light. Samantha must have sensed it, yet here she was, still yearning for her father. Her innocence brought me to tears, and I regretted letting my anger almost rob her of her father. I decided to wait until Samantha no longer needed her father before proceeding with the divorce. I agreed to stay, but with conditions: a higher than usual settlement and Adam spending time with Samantha once a week. Adam paid the settlement, ultimately charged to his mistress, and that was enough for me, knowing I dealt them both a blow. He kept his promise to play with Samantha weekly, but that didn't last long either. I wanted to confront him about breaking his promise, but I couldn't bear to dredge up the past and hurt Samantha. Our relationship somewhat mended, the daily arguments ceased, and we entered our 50s. Samantha had been working for over 2 years and had become independent. Adam had been on an overseas assignment for 3 years, during which I lived alone at home. Concerned about me, Samantha decided to continue living with me even after getting her job. Since Adam's overseas assignment began, he rarely came home, and his presence naturally faded from our lives. That day, Samantha was relaxing on her day off when a young blonde woman arrived pushing a stroller. At first glance, she looked barely older than Samantha, and in the stroller, the twins slept peacefully. With tense curiosity, I invited them inside. The young woman introduced herself as Olivia and stunned me by saying she was dating Adam. My husband had betrayed his family not once, but twice, and with a woman his daughter's age. The thought of a man in his 50s having a relationship with such a young woman made my stomach turn. Seeing me speechless, Adam must have mistaken it for anger, because he flashed a callous smile and announced he wanted a divorce since he had a new family. He demanded Samantha and I move out, declaring he wouldn't pay any support. When Olivia playfully complained about me being mean, Adam's eyes lit up with satisfaction. They smiled at me mockingly, while the babies in the stroller slept on peacefully. Their innocent faces reminded me of Samantha's dream from years ago. Samantha asked Adam about his recent work, and his expression suddenly changed. Even Olivia, who had been brimming with confidence, scrambled to cover for him. She defended him, saying that while he wasn't making millions, he was a department head with a promotion coming. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Adam had been lying to win Olivia's affection. He wasn't a department head or anything close, he was just a regular employee. True, he'd been up for promotion when we married, but that opportunity vanished when he was caught embezzling company funds. Though the amount was small, embezzlement was still a crime. I took pity on him and repaid the money with interest, using my savings. Thanks to the company president being my father's childhood friend and Adam's desperate apologies, he kept his job, but with the condition that he'd never be promoted. My efforts were in vain. Adam never got that promotion and certainly couldn't become a department head. He'd clearly lied to impress Olivia. Hearing this, Olivia's face turned ashen. She panicked, screaming about why he'd lied and how she never would have gotten involved had she known he was just a regular employee. Like a child caught in a lie, Adam's eyes filled with tears as he pleaded in a feeble voice, saying he had no choice but to win her heart, so deeply he loved her. The exchange between these two adults was painful to witness, and their desperation carried a comical air. The whole scene felt like a badly written soap opera, the kind I used to watch with my mother on sick days home from school. Through this chaos, Samantha rose with the quiet dignity I'd always admired in her, returning from her room with an envelope that seemed to carry the weight of secrets. Presenting the evidence quietly, she stunned us as she calmly revealed the truth, that she knew about Adam's affair. It had started, she explained, with a friend's chance sighting of Adam in town, like a thread that, when pulled, unraveled an entire sweater of lies. After identifying Adam in the photographs, Samantha became a secret detective, tracking Adam's movements in the reported locations with the help of my parents. The evidence kept piling up, but she kept it from me, fearing the shock would affect my health in my old age. The overprotective instincts I always had for her, she now directed towards me. Now, documents and photos were spread out on the table, each one ruthlessly telling the story of their deceit. I watched the color drain from their faces, their carefully constructed fantasy world crumbling. Then my brave Samantha, her voice steady, began to speak with a strength that filled my heart with fierce pride. Her voice, tinged with years of suppressed pain, cut through the room as she expressed complete contempt for her father's actions, condemning his betrayal and selfish creation of a new family. The hurt in her voice deepened as she touched on how her father hardly ever played with her, a lifetime of neglect condensed into one bitter observation. The waves of disgust rolling off my daughter were almost tangible, and honestly, I felt the same way. Dealing with these people was like walking through mud, exhausting and pointless, but necessary for closure. When I told him, "I will claim alimony, and I plan to report this to your company's president," Adam's face turned pale. Clinging to her illusions, Olivia objected, doubting my authority to contact the company president. Feeling a small sense of satisfaction, I explained the simple truth, that the president was my father's childhood friend. Their shocked expressions might have been comical in a different context. When Olivia confronted Adam, asking why he hadn't mentioned such an important detail before, I let out a bitter laugh. I explained how my father's connections had helped my career, though not through nepotism, and saved Adam's during the embezzlement scandal. When he fully grasped what it meant, the last bit of color drained from Adam's face. With one phone call from me, his entire future could crumble. With his background, finding employment elsewhere would be difficult. He would destroy not only his own life, but also Olivia's and the twins' lives. Olivia's mask of a loving girlfriend fell away, and with a face distorted by anger and panic, she grabbed Adam's collar. Her dream of an easy life with a successful department head evaporated in an instant. Poor Adam desperately tried to maintain a smile while mouthing weak platitudes about the power of love and family. But Olivia was unmoved by his feeble words. What she had loved was not the aging man before her, but the promise of wealth. Through her tears, Olivia clung to Adam's promises and demanded child support. That's when Samantha delivered the final blow, questioning the twins' paternity like a chess player announcing checkmate. In response to the voices demanding an explanation, she pulled out more evidence from the envelope. As the new photos scattered across the table, Olivia's scream sliced through the air. There she was, captured walking through the hotel district with another man, another betrayal in this web of lies. Adam snatched the photos from my hand and turned to face Olivia, his face flushed with anger. His love transformed into a rage, accusing her of trying to pass off another man's children as his without DNA testing. Olivia broke down in tears, revealing a cunning scheme that belied her youth, a foolish tactic as old as time itself, trying to pass off another man's child as Adam's. Just when I thought this pitiful scene was finally ending, Adam suddenly dropped to his knees. "What are you doing?" I asked, watching him sprawled on the floor. He cried out desperately, declaring I was the only one, that I was his true love. He begged for another chance, promising to be a better husband, insisting he needed me. What nonsense! If he truly needed me, he never would have gotten involved with Olivia in the first place. After years of betrayal, my heart had hardened, and his words came too late to make any impact. "I'm sorry, but the divorce is final. Samantha and I will leave this house. I'll mail you the divorce papers, make sure you fill them out and submit them properly," I responded in a steady, firm voice. I returned to my room, and Samantha, understanding my intentions without a word, followed. By the time we finished packing, Olivia and the children had left, and Adam was alone in the living room, crying pathetically. He desperately clung to us, begging us not to leave him alone, but we walked past him as if he didn't exist. Samantha and I left the house together, deciding to stay at a hotel until we found a new place. I mailed the divorce papers and consulted a lawyer to ensure smooth proceedings. I felt an immense relief as if I'd been carrying a burden for years. Samantha continued working as usual, and though she initially suggested looking for separate places, she must have sensed my loneliness. Her offer to live together in our new home warmed my heart. We started house hunting while continuing our work, sometimes going out together for fun. Without Adam's destabilizing presence, I could spend more quality time with Samantha. For the first time since my marriage, I could truly enjoy life without constant worry. However, this peaceful period was interrupted one weekday at the office. After reviewing the day's schedule with my secretary, my phone started ringing persistently. It was Adam. I ignored the calls, maintaining my strict separation between work and personal life. But he kept calling, so I decided to deal with it after returning to the hotel. The call history showed he'd been calling continuously since I first noticed. Before I could even say hello, Adam's anguished cry came through, "Help me. I'm losing the house." I sighed. This was the natural consequence of his actions. After all, the house was in my name. Yes, I was the legal owner of the house where our family had lived. Initially, it was in both our names, but when Adam's promotion prospects were eliminated and loan payments became uncertain, I changed it to my name alone. I had been making all the loan payments, with Adam contributing only minimal amounts. His eviction was inevitable, but he seemed unable to grasp even this simple fact. Perhaps I had coddled him too much over the years. When I reminded him of these facts, his face contorted with fear, and he began pleading desperately. He complained about being fired by the president, losing both his job and home, and asking how he was supposed to survive. "That's not my problem anymore. Figure it out yourself," I responded coldly. This situation was entirely of his own making. If he hadn't betrayed us, even if our relationship wasn't perfect, we could have continued as a family. But Adam refused to acknowledge his mistakes, clinging to empty hopes. I felt no sympathy for his miserable state. My feelings for him had completely dried up. Honestly, even interacting with him was unpleasant. I decided to end the conversation firmly. "If you delay submitting the divorce papers, this will go to court. That would make finding work even harder for you. Oh dear, do you even have the means to pay the settlement?" I watched Adam making choking sounds from desperation. In a sweet yet sarcastic tone, I continued, "By the way, about the president, he seems angrier than expected. I heard he's been talking about you in various places. But you'll be fine, right? It's not like you're a celebrity." Adam begged in a desperate voice, "Please, help me. This is the end for me." I couldn't help but smile. It was almost comical, like watching the final act of a tragedy where the villain finally faces justice. But this was all Adam's responsibility. He had betrayed Samantha and me for years, trampling our trust without a second thought. Looking back now, marrying Adam was like buying a house without checking the foundation, a fundamental mistake. Sometimes in the quiet moments, I find myself shaking my head at the young woman I once was, so easily captivated by Adam's charm and promises. That last phone call from him still echoes in my memory, the way my voice grew cold and steady as I told him his actions meant nothing to me anymore, asking if he still couldn't see how he'd brought this all upon himself. The click of the phone as I hung up felt like closing a chapter of my life, one that had gone on far too long. His desperate attempts to contact me only strengthened my resolve. Each time I forwarded his number to my lawyer and blocked his messages, it opened another door to my newfound freedom. Finally, with Adam unable to interfere in my life, I felt like I could truly take a deep breath for the first time in years. My maternal instincts kicked in immediately, and I made sure Samantha blocked his contact information too. This time, I wouldn't let him hurt either of us again. My lawyer later shared how Adam had dragged his feet about submitting the divorce papers, but the threat of a court battle quickly changed his tune. Funny how bullies often crumble when faced with real consequences. What happened next was almost like something out of a movie. He had to borrow money from some questionable characters to pay the settlement. You might raise an eyebrow at such a desperate move, but with his in-laws severing all ties and warning everyone they knew about him, he burned every bridge he had. While he managed to scrape together the settlement money, those loans came back to haunt him. Word on the street is he's working on a fishing boat now, courtesy of his shady creditors. Olivia's story took an unexpected turn too. Her parents stepped in to pay her settlement, but their intervention came with strings attached. They were so furious about the scandal that they took control of everything, including her paycheck. Imagine being in your prime years, but living like a teenager on an allowance. They say her legendary beauty is fading fast under the stress. Though I take no joy in another woman's suffering, there's a certain poetry to how vanity can crumble. The truth about those twins finally came out. They weren't Adams after all. When I met Olivia's parents through my lawyer, I saw something in their eyes that gave me peace. These were good people who would give those children the stability they deserved. Life settled into a gentle rhythm after that, my work becoming a sanctuary rather than just a job. Samantha joined my company as an office worker, and watching her excel on her own merit fills me with pride that has nothing to do with being her mother. Then came that day, the day Samantha said the company had something to share with me. My heart skipped when I saw that young man standing beside her, his eyes holding the kind of genuine warmth I'd once hoped to see in Adams. When Samantha blushed and announced her engagement, my mother's heart nearly burst with joy and a touch of bittersweet regret for the hardships she'd endured because of my choices. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them, happy tears, healing tears. My sweet girl pulled out her handkerchief, teasing me about saving some tears for the wedding as she dried my eyes just like I used to do for her when she was small. Her fiancé's comment about what a wonderful mother I was touched something deep in my soul. Maybe I hadn't failed her after all. Looking back, there were many dark days that made me want to run away, but Samantha was my guiding light, my north star through the storm. Now, my greatest purpose is continuing to be the mother she can proudly claim as her own. Sharing this story with all of you feels like a gift. A chance to turn my pain into something meaningful. It's remarkable how life's greatest challenges often lead us to unexpected blessings. These moments of reflection help me see how far I've come, how much stronger I've grown. I wonder, have any of you faced a moment in your life that felt like standing at the edge of an abyss? During my years with Adam, those moments came far too often. There were nights I'd lie awake, wondering how my life had veered so far from the path I'd imagined, questioning if I'd ever see daylight again. Have you ever lost yourself so completely in someone else's orbit that you forgot who you were meant to be? That was my reality with Adam. When we first met, he radiated this magnetic confidence that seemed to promise security and success. Fresh from college, my heart full of dreams, I mistook his controlling nature for strength, his manipulation for love. I thought I'd found my forever partner, someone to build a beautiful life with. However, as time passed, things began to change so gradually that at first, I didn't even notice. Haven't we all found ourselves deep in a situation we knew wasn't right, but we kept hoping, praying it would somehow transform into the dream we'd originally envisioned? Has anyone else lived through that kind of slow-burning realization? Something inside you whispers that things aren't right, but you cling to hope that everything will work out, ignoring that inner voice. Have any of you experienced that moment when someone you love suddenly stops caring about you? It's an awful feeling, isn't it? That loneliness you feel even when you're with someone. And then the betrayal. The heart-piercing pain when someone you trusted betrays you. When I discovered Adam's infidelity, it felt like my world was crumbling. I felt so hurt, so broken. I know I'm not alone in this. While contemplating divorce, I questioned myself countless times. I worried about Samantha, how growing up without a father would affect her. Yet I knew I couldn't continue in a relationship that was slowly destroying me. In life, there are times when we must choose between the easy path and the right path for ourselves. Have you ever stood at a crossroads where no choice seemed right, yet you had to make a decision? I ultimately chose divorce, though it was a path filled with anxiety and fear. But my inner voice kept telling me I had to stay strong. Not just for myself, but for Samantha. I felt I needed to show Samantha that even in the darkest times, there's always a way out. Looking back now, I understand how crucial that decision was. It's not just about surviving, but truly living. Finding happiness even after experiencing numerous hardships is what matters. That feeling of being able to breathe again, like a weight has been lifted. That's exactly how I felt when I divorced Adam. This isn't about hatred or grudges. It's about liberation. It's about realizing you deserve better, that you're worthy of happiness. Now, I'd like to talk a bit about the future. I think everyone contemplates this, especially after difficult experiences. How do you view your future after overcoming major trials? Do you feel scared of the unknown? Or are you excited about what's to come? For me, the future became an opportunity for rediscovery. A chance to explore new possibilities and rebuild my life the way I've always wanted. My daughter Samantha has been my greatest inspiration throughout this process. Watching her grow into a strong, independent woman has given me the strength to move forward. I'd like to ask you all, who inspires you? Who has been your beacon of hope when you needed it most? I believe everyone needs someone like that. Someone who reminds us how strong we are, even when we forget it ourselves. What I hope you'll take away from this conversation is the importance of surrounding yourself with people who truly care about you, support you, and encourage you to become better. As I conclude this reflection, thank you for being here, listening to my story, and sharing your thoughts and experiences. Life isn't always easy, but I believe that with proper support and determination to move forward, we can overcome any obstacle. Don't you think so? I'd love to continue this conversation. Please feel free to share your own stories, challenges, and how you overcame them. I'm here to listen, learn, and support each other on this journey called life. Thank you again for being here. Let's move forward with hope, strength, and the confidence that whatever the future brings, we're ready to face it. Thank you for watching our stories. Please subscribe to our channel to receive more touching stories. Turn on the notification bell to be the first to know about new updates. We look forward to your comments.